Welcome, everyone, to the Cup of Coffee podcast with me, your host, Tom Dillon. This has been recorded live at our weekly online meeting and broadcast around the world. Today's topic is Little Gems with a few extra special different speakers from mostly within our community. The idea before I start, I'd like to say by way of a disclaimer that today's wonderful discussion, but nothing said here, constitutes financial advice and you should always take professional advice before investing your hard-earned cash. There may be the odd unplanned swear word along the way as well. The point for today is that various people will speak to us about their little gems, and then we'll also have a chat. It'll be hopefully more interactive today, but that's not up to me. It's up to these useless waziks. So we'll see how we go. I won't do a bio for each speaker. We'll just introduce them and crack on. But if you want to connect with anyone, let me know, and I'm sure I can put you in touch. Meanwhile, the idea, Little Gems, the idea was, and I think it's an idea that, as usual, came in from Julie, or Yogesh, but Julie, this one I think was that there's things in property or in mental health, mindset, whatever, all that sort of stuff that people have, where some people will get more out of an idea than other people, or they'll have a little gem, an idea that's not really out there so much or not really so well known, and they get more out of it or get a lot out of it, and maybe something they'd like to share. So, or something that some people have 5 minutes experience, some people have 15 years experience, and that they've used to get, in either of those situations, used to get ahead in what they're doing. So I thought, well, why not try and distill some of those down, get some shares on, and then we can all try and learn something fun and exciting, on a Saturday morning or whenever you might happen to be consuming this lovely content. So without further ado, let's do it. We're going to start with Mr. Ed, full name Edward.
Yes, morning. Full name is Edward. So I'm an investor and a student surveyor. Unlike most of you guys, I haven't got like 20 years of experience or ATH was generating 700 pounds, uh, each property. But the main reason why I wanted to share my little gems is way more about mindset, life organization, because I've always been a chaotic person, trying to do too many things at the same time. Just like I get easily excited. So I was privileged to be part of Tom and Chris mentoring group, and they gave me so many help on that aspect. And something that stick the most with me was the 70-20-10 rule. So basically, what do I mean by that is what was the 70% that takes the majority of your time, and try and prioritize on that. So just to give an example, you've got 70% of the main thing that you do. You've got 20% of maybe like a side hustle, or maybe like I don't know, whatever you like to do, and you've got that 10% of maybe like improvement of self-development, and using that technique for me has been um, a really great tool. In my own case, I'm studying to become a surveyor. So my 70%, for example, is surveying. So anything that I do, I try to structure my day and my lifetime by just spending majority of the time on this surveying. The next thing is property. And the next thing is like self-development, so personal development, like maybe reading books. So I wouldn't try to do 8 hours of reading books and forgetting that I maybe do only 1 hour of surveying, just if that makes sense. Um, and that's one of my gems. Another little gem that I've got is, again, something that I still learn from being part of the group, is having a accountability friends. So each week I've got like a group of friends that I turn into and tell them about my week in business, my key learnings. And in my opinion, that has been really great because sometimes property and business becomes really lonely. It's really hard to understand, to have people that see the vision, that see the struggles, and sometimes you start getting some very trash advice from from people just that haven't done it before. So having those group of people that keeps you going on is really good. Also, shout out to my friend Joe Robinson. He's a nutritionist. I'll probably put the link below of his page. He's been the one that gave me another advice, which is that's been really helpful, is having a scoreboard. So what do I mean by that? It's like having an Excel file where I record my performance during the week. So for example, if I had like some goals, let's say the goal was to make like 7 hours of studying, and I managed to do five. I put it down in my Excel sheet, and during that period, I've made like like a visual representation on my performance. So sometimes I'll be like, that week I did so much, and I'll be like, okay, why did I do that much? So I could be performing or underperforming, and based on how the week went, I can understand, okay, well, I can bring to the next week, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That was has been really helping me out with this stuff. Again, it's easy to get carried away by just putting numbers. Some, as I said, you've got like a group, an accountability group. You've got the scoreboard. Sometimes it's get easy. Oh, let me just do it because I want to make numbers, or let me just do it because I want to make my accountability friends happy, or because I want to make my I don't know, my disappeared dad happy, and and having all these issues. It's easy to get carried away and just be putting numbers and just be doing it for that. But that's having a fixed mindset, just that's not really helpful, because you get carried away, you get tired and burned out. But when you have like a growth mindset, you just appreciate the effort and the improvement, and you always be like, okay, what can I do next time to make sure that it happens again, or to not make it not happen again. So yeah, mindset is another big jam that I would say, the way you approach it. So that's pretty much it for me, Edward
Super.
Abbas. Yeah.
Well done, Ed. Not only have you covered more or less all the little gems in the world, but you've done it in about 4.5 minutes. So double win
Thank
as far
you.
as I'm concerned. Ed out. The 70-20-10 thing, which is where you started, is a very interesting idea, which I think we've stolen from Progressive Property, and I'm sure they stole it from somewhere else. But shout out to them. And yeah, I'm glad I remember introducing that to you, and you were very excited about that. You're not excited, but you were very attentive when we were talking about that, and glad to see you've done a lot with it. I think it's a great tool for focus, isn't it? It's a way of
Hmm.
remaining focused on the important tasks. And funnily enough, the kind of second thing you talked about of having a scoreboard, and whichever way you want to do it, but making sure you're keeping track of the important things, because the difference, isn't there, between important and urgent, and keeping the
Hmm.
important things on a spreadsheet or however you want to do it, and then giving yourself a score for it can motivate. I must find, like, I've done similar things to that in the past, and if I've scored 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 for the thing, it's almost like I don't care why, but as long as I know that the thing on the spreadsheet is the thing that I want to do, that I've decided previously is important, and then I've scored 9 or 10 out of 10 for it, or whatever whatever scoring system you've got. It's like that's a real motivator. 'Cause, like, it's gone great. I've done well towards that goal, and you feel good. It's a motivator to do more. Um, by the way, we didn't set Ed up first because he was one of our mentees. He did that off his own bat. But having said that, so it's not all a massive marketing ploy. It's not. But if it was, I'd tell you to go and check out bestpropertymentoring.com for more information. Okay. Oh, and then Colin is our guy in charge of the chat today. I think Isu had a question. What was that?
Yeah, he's just asking Ed, what was his 20%? What's his 10%?
All right. So my 70%, my 70, is he my personal 70%, or?
Yeah. So I think Isu was asking about your 20 and your 10 specifically.
All
What
right,
the
yeah.
small ones?
So my 20s is property. So basically, finding property, doing property research, going for viewings, um, try and be as much as possible in the copper meetings. That's my 20%. I understand that surveying is my most important thing, so I try not to do too much on property, if that makes sense. So if I can only view 2 houses that week, I won't beat myself up and be like, oh man, I should have been doing like 100 houses in a week, because that's what the academy told me to do. Blah, blah, blah. It's just not my priority anymore, at the moment. Obviously that changes. My 10% is more exercising my mind. So like reading books, getting myself motivated, um, and yeah, personal development basically. It's really easy to forget that that even sit down and meditate and think, okay, I've got a 10-year plan. Let me just revise it again and see how I can improve. It's really easy to get over it. So having that 10% as a priority as well, that really helped me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of these ideas, they're quite simple ideas, but I think the power of the 70-20-10 is that it focuses your mind to say, hey, this is your main thing. Basically, the 70% is try and focus on one thing, so you don't end up focusing on thousands of things, which is quite common for an entrepreneurial type of person. Have 1,000 ideas a day and end up chasing shiny pennies. So it does that, but it also accepts that, yeah, at the same time, it's not 100-0-0. It's fine to have a main thing and some other things that in the future might become your main thing. So Ed at the moment is studying towards being a structural surveyor or whatever it is, and but then in the future, once he's completed that, maybe the property slides over from the 20 to the 70, but he's already been working on that, so it's not like a whole new thing. It's just it changes the priority. And having again the 10, I think a lot of people have the 10 as like either a mental health thing or a self-development thing or a bit of both of those, because it fits quite nicely there. Something you want to constantly work on and not forget about. It's important, but you don't want it to be, you don't need to wake up. Some people do, but most people don't want to wake up and stare at a blue screen for 14 hours, meditating and then go to bed again, right? There's only really monks want to do that. We've got today, so thanks for that, Ed. We've got today we've trained people on how to use the raise hand feature of Zoom, and by Jingo, it's worked with Mark and Mei Lee. I'm not sure which one it is, but Mark or Mei Lee, what have you got for us?
Yes. Hi. Yeah, thank you, Ed. That was, I think, really helpful. And I just wanted to add that I think what you laid out is kind of the structural strategy. And in terms of implementing that strategy, what I found helpful, especially for your 20% or 10%, that's not your main gig, because it's easy to say, well, in my main job, I've got these priorities and I need to do them X, Y, Z. But for the side gig, I found it really hard to accomplish things that I prioritize because I get distracted. As Tom said, you've got all these other things. And so it sounds simple, but one thing that I've learned is just like write down the most important thing that you need to accomplish today for your side gig. And instead of having like 3 things or 5 things, which I think most of us do, right? You have a to-do list that's very long, but if you could just distill the one thing that you'll feel good about doing if you did it today, and that really shouldn't wait until the next day, then you don't beat yourself up if you only did that one thing, right? And you think, oh, but I've got 10 things. I only did 1. I'm not productive. But if you could just say, like, this is the one thing that's the most important for your 20% gig or your 10% gig, then I think it just helps provide clarity. And then you also have a sense of accomplishment and don't feel like you're not being productive if you didn't do other things. And the second thing that I found helpful is, and probably most people already know this, but the Pomodoro method, or like the time boxing method, where you basically set a timer for 25 minutes and you work exclusive, whatever your one thing is, you're like, I just need to focus this one thing. I'm going to put 25 minutes, no distractions, not going to check my phone, not checking emails, not doing other things. And then when the 20-minute is up, you take a 5-minute break and you must leave your desk and do something that's not related to work. So it's stretching, getting a glass of water, going to the loo, breathing, meditating, whatever. And then when that 5-minute is up, you go back and do 25 more minutes, and you do 4 of these, and that's one set. And then you take a longer break, and that could be a half-hour break or 1 hour if you really need it. And then you can have lunch or go for a walk, have a phone conversation or whatever it is that I think rejuvenates you. And then you go back and do the 25-minute thing again. So it just really helps you focus instead of, I think sometimes it's easy to get pulled into, oh, answer this email or someone messaged me, right? Or all these little things. Oh, I need to do grocery shopping, or let me see what's on Amazon. And I think this just helps you focus and actually accomplish that one thing you really want to accomplish today. So
fabulous. Thank you, Mei Lee. During that, Colin was showing off his clock, which I think was is what he uses to use that exact method. It all sounds great. My only problem with the Pomodoro method is it always sounds to me like a method of birth control, and so I struggle to get on with it, to be honest. But I think the idea, that's Colin's other clock for birth control, I think.
A 25-minute timer, Tom, then I'm off. I've got
yeah. Well, in which case, as Colin rightly points out, time as always is our friend and our enemy. So let's crack on with speaker number 2, namely Mr. Gaskin. Hello, Sam. I'll let the speakers introduce themselves so they can say what they want to say about themselves or not. You know, keep themselves like men in the shadows or women.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Sam Gaskin. I'm a landlord since 2004, and I invest in single lets HMOs, and I've been running an HMO lettings agency in Manchester since 2015. So I have 10 little gems for you. That not necessarily property related, but I've been reassured just now that, you know, it can also be about mindset. So apologies in advance if I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but here we go. Number 1 is personal development. So embrace what Tony Robbins calls the constant and never-ending improvement, and the idea of lessons learned. When I was a kid, I was very shy, and I bought a book about building confidence, and that kind of sparked my interest in personal development. Tony Robbins, the idea of human potential and that anything is possible. And then also on the lessons learned side, I came across that more through my career. And yeah, you know, if something doesn't work out as expected, it's a fantastic opportunity for you to learn and implement something to get a better result next time. And it's the compound effect. And, you know, where you're doing something and it's either improving or the opposite. So it can be either positive or negative, the logarithmic curve, 1% a day. So number 1, personal development. 2, dream and visualize. So, and this needs to be not sat in front of your laptop in a little dark room where you're working. It needs to be in an inspiring environment. So it could be on the top of a hill, in the woods, by the beach, where you can kind of just get out of the day-to-day and reflect really on where you are, where your life wants to be. And then it's writing down those inspiring goals, whether it's annually and then breaking it down to quarterly. And then, you know, you work on that weekly then, and prioritizing those actions that are going to move you forward that week. And have a system to dump everything that's in your brain. And if there's something that you should take note of, write it down, because you know, that's been one of my failings in the past, is I've just had too much in the head and then I forget stuff. So I always write it down now on a system. Then you can schedule those tasks to get them done. So that's number 2, dream and visualize. Number 3, seek out people, education or mentors to help you achieve those goals. So you want somebody, like Ed was saying, somebody that's going to hold you to account, somebody that will push you to take difficult decisions, or, you know, maybe actions that you're putting off, or maybe you're just being plain lazy and you need to kick up the arse. And it's also somebody that you can bounce ideas off and that will give you an outside view from a third party. They're not necessarily involved in the day-to-day with, you know, you've got a lot of emotions attached to your decisions you're making. It's somebody that can look at it objectively and help you move on. So that's number 3. Number 4 is to consistently network and build relationships. When I've been thinking about this and looking back, many pivotal moments in my life have been influenced by people or friends that I've met through network meetings. You never know who you're going to meet, and you never know what little gem you're going to leave with that meeting. So that's number 4, networking, relationships. Number 5, systemize and outsource. This is something I've kind of learned more about as I've built my lettings agency. Why? Well, it gives you time, first of all. So you're by documenting things, systemizing it, you're able to outsource it, give it to somebody else to do. You're working your way through those lower value tasks, more like the delivery, so that you can focus on the management and then the business development. So you're increasing your value and your pay rate ultimately. And also very important is that you're enabling your business or your investing to achieve consistent results, because you've got a step-by-step process that you're looking at and kind of evolving at with the point number one, improving it. So that's number 5, systemize and outsource. Number 6, this is one I was just thinking about, what things that haven't gone well for me. And last year I had a very stressful period where I'd lent some money, not just me, but also my dad, because I was like, I get very excited about opportunities. Oh, this is great. No, you should. So, okay, yeah. So I lent a substantial amount of money to an investor, kind of like developer really, and my dad matched it. Somebody that I knew and trusted, liked, they had a track record, very impressed with their offering. And then when it came time to pay back that loan, it was quiet at their end, and after a bit of chasing, there was a bit of a response, and then it was like, oh, would you mind extending it for another year? And I was like, well, actually, if you'd come up to us in advance, maybe, yeah, but no, we're a bit concerned now. Would you mind paying it back, and then we can see if we could go again? And then it just got a bit worse from then. It got to the point where I was having quite a few sleepless nights thinking, I'm not going to get this back. And even worse, I've lost my dad's money. So the lesson looking at that one was, and maybe now it's because I'm a bit later on in life, later in the journey, when you've, I don't know, it's about risk, isn't it? So what I've written down here is, if you're lending money, make sure you have security, so a first charge, or be prepared to lose it. So okay, it's the risk reward kind of decision, and you're prepared to lose that money. We had personal guarantees in place. Unfortunately, in the end, it all came right, but we had to go through solicitors, and so I don't think I would do that again without first charge. Number 7, financial clarity. So again, this has come more through the business, but equally on the personal side, your personal wealth as well. Financial clarity. So you as an entity, knowing things like your net worth, having a net worth spreadsheet, your a monthly P&L for all your properties and overall, so you can see kind of which properties are performing, which are not, what are the issues, what actions you need to take. Balance sheet, where you can measure, like movements there, things like loans, outstanding, and so on. And then have a budget in place for each entity, whether it's your personal or your different businesses. And then you obviously every month you're reviewing against that budget, and then every year you're kind of resetting the budget. So that's financial clarity. Number 7. Number 8, get investment advice from an IFA or similar. So this was something that I did last year, probably far too late in the game, but there you go. He's not an IFA, he was just somebody recommended to me through my mentor. So I'm working with a guy called Damien Fogg. He wrote a book called The Money Shot. He's written a number of podcasts and so on. And he's a successful investor trader. He was also a chartered surveyor, so he's got a kind of exposure across all of the asset classes. And it's been really helpful to open my eyes to other investments apart from property, and understand things like asset allocation, whether it's the 60-40, where you're like looking at safer asset classes like things like bonds, gold, and then the more riskier, but then the classes that got more potential to grow, like equities. So yeah, we're investing some of our savings into stock market or into that asset allocation, but also it's having, again, that person, and maybe he's taken on a bit of a marriage counsellor role, because I have meetings with Damien, with my wife, and it's really helped us. Things looking at your own home. So where we were kind of stuck in a decision about moving from a 2-bed to a 3-bed apartment. for the sake of our kids and our sanity. But he really helped with that decision on how to move forwards. It was just having a third party kind of like questioning us, and in the end we agreed a purchase lease option for 1 year. So we were in that apartment, and now we're trying it out. And then we recently had a call with him, and he said, you know, you like it, why not just buy it now and negotiate with the vendor a discount on what you've already agreed on the rental payment. So it's just the third party again, has somebody helping you, not just looking at property, but your whole wealth and investments. So that's number 8. Number 9, I don't know if anybody on the call has HMOs, and if they have, if they've been killed slowly by increased energy bills. But if you have, check what kind of contracts you're on. If you're on business rates, which this is something that's just front of mind for me, because last week one of our landlords had a £1,000 bill for electricity for one of his HMOs, and I was looking through the bills and so on. First, well, there's a couple of things. So if you're on a business rates and it's a domestic property, like such as an HMO, that qualifies for an exemption on the climate change levy and reduced rate of VAT. So these are extra charges that you'll pay if you don't apply for the exemption. And so you'll be paying 20% VAT instead of 5%. So you can make a big saving there. But even bigger, and this is something that came about just through sharing this and through a couple of Facebook comments and friends that got in touch, is that domestic rates are and have been far cheaper than business rates since COVID. And I began looking at this last week for one of my properties where I've been paying about £700 a month for a 4-bed student HMO in Coventry, and speaking to the agent to see what we could do to get the bills down. But it's really the prices. So the prices there, I've been paying about 52 pence per kilowatt hour for electricity, when really at the moment you should be on domestic rates, it's about 27 pence for electricity and about 7 for gas. So I'm paying about double. And speak to my supplier, I say, can I switch to domestic? And he said, yeah, you can. So that's happening, and you can just, it's going to halve my energy bills just on that one property. So definitely, if you've got an HMO and you just check the rates that you're on, and if they are commercial, switch to domestic residential. That's number 9. Finally, number 10. I don't know if it's a little gem or a note to self or the ramblings of a madman, but I'm going to read it to you. So when you're pedaling on the bike of life, remember you're not Superman. It may be tempting to think that you can fly around corners in the wet, but when you're flying through the air towards the concrete, reality bites. So keep your feet on the pedals, your eyes on the road, and your ACL and meniscus intact. I shall leave it there.
Is that from a man who may or may not have a big brace on his knee?
I don't know if I was just rambling there, or if it can be applied to property and investing, but there you go.
Was that something you wrote from the hospital bed? I always find there's great wisdom to be found there. Great stuff, thank you, Sam. There's loads of them, right? That was something I took from Sam's. First of all, he did 10 happy days, 10 little gems. But it's like we've got some others, and we've got some more coming up. And if you're like me, easy to get overwhelmed and think, right, screw this. There's too many little gems. I'm going to go and have a biscuit. That's what I'm going to go and do. So here's my top tip. Thinking about that myself is take one. Of all these, find what, I mean, by all means, do all of them. But I also thought, when reading these self-development books when I first started, is if you did all these, you'd never get any work done, right? You'd go journaling, you'd have financial clarity, but you wouldn't have any damn properties or business or whatever it is you're trying to do to make some coins. So there is a balance of that you probably can't do everything. You have to decide which ones are powerful for you, maybe based on your character, which ones are going to be the ones that are going to really move you forward, and that's going to be different. So you need to decide. So for me, we've got the lovely Julie and Colin coming up, but so far, the one I'm going to take away is financial clarity. And that's because the stage of the journey I'm at. I already have some financial clarity. I was like, yeah, some of the things that Sam was talking about there, I don't have, and that would really help me move me forward. So I'm going to go away and put that on my to-do list and get it done. But for you, it might be something else. Like another note I made was how easy journaling can be and how powerful it can be. I don't do it so much anymore, but I certainly did it for a few years, and it was amazing when I first thought about it. Oh, there's nowhere near here that would be good for that. And I thought, hang on a minute, there's that wooded glade just at the end of my street. And so I used to go out there early morning before breakfast to get in the car for about 30 seconds. It was a very short drive, sit in a car park, but a wooded glady type of car park, and sit there and do some journaling, and found it very powerful. I found it good. So pick one. If on that note, and to put Sam on the spot, because that's my favorite thing. If you had to choose one, Sam, one of your 10, what would you do? Which one would you choose?
It's probably, I mean, it's a bit cliche and boring, but number one, just personal development. I think working on yourself. I think Simon Zucci says, doesn't it, the best investment you can make is into yourself. Yeah, I would agree with that.
There you go. All right, let's crack on with the lovely. Well, have we got anything in the chat kicking off?
Questions about the financial advisor Sam mentioned. What was his name?
We need a name, Sam. We need a name.
Damien Fogg. Damien with an E.
Damien Fogg. If we remember between us, we'll stick details in with the podcast. But people are lazy, so that's that. Julie.
Hello. What I love about all these little gems is, although this is Property Meet, none of them, few of them are related to actually property stuff, right? They're all like how we sort of how we sort of organize ourselves, and that is really very much where I'm coming from with the little gems as well. And the reason for that, I suppose, is I, for the last 15 years or so, have been growing our property portfolio from outside the UK. Now, 7 of those years, or 6 or 7 of those years, I was actually paused. And that was because a few things had gone wrong and didn't work out. So I paused. And then when I restarted, really, my knowledge didn't change a lot. What changed was how I organized my time, how I saw things, how I looked at things, and my mindset and things like that. That was really what I made the biggest change in, rather than like getting different knowledge, which on the one hand was frustrating because I'd always had the knowledge. Why have I made no progress for 7 years? But hey ho, that's why I've chosen, on the, like everyone else, sort of mindset type of things. So my first one is a little thinking tool. I think I saw it it could have been a Forbes magazine or like something like that. But I used to get sort of held back by thoughts of, I can't grow up in my property portfolio because we're overseas. I can't do it because of this, and I'd be thinking like that. So one of the things I found really helpful was to flip my thinking. So if I ever find myself thinking, I can't do this thing because of this reason, I try and think of it differently and think, how can I do this thing? So how can I grow my property portfolio even though I'm thousands of miles away? And it sounds really silly, but just flipping your thinking to it, even just like for your internal conversation, how can I, rather than, can't, it could be anything like, I can't exercise, or I can't find the time. Just like, how can I find the time? So that's my first one. How can I? And if anyone knows the person who coined that phrase, then let me know, because it definitely wasn't me. I really did read it somewhere. I just cannot remember where. My second one is, it's really focusing and taking action on the very next step. So sometimes I can get caught up thinking about the big picture and the grand plan and things like that, which is super important. But then sometimes I can find that I'm maybe not actually taking action, or worrying about what might happen and different permutations and combinations. So sometimes or often these days, my habit is to focus on what the immediate next step is that's going to move me forward, and not worrying about, things that are going to happen beyond that, just focusing on getting past that next step. Because sometimes that next step is annoying, boring, difficult, or whatever, and we can just sort of leave it. So putting ultra focus on the very next step and helping make sure you move forwards. My next one is focusing on what's in our control, rather than worrying or stressing or about things that are outside of our control. so many examples of this in property. You know, we can get frustrated about things that are happening or not happening that we want to, and each day when something like that's going on, I just think, right, you know, what can I do today to move this forward? You know, who can I call? Who can I email? You know, what can I actually do? What is totally within my control, rather than just sitting here and waiting for the thing to happen? And quite often it is, you know, picking up the phone. Maybe it's just even asking somebody, like, you know, how's this going? Is there anything I can do to help you? They might say, no, I'm still working on it, or no, it's being held up because of X, Y, and Z reason. But what I've found is when I've done that, if I've just done the thing that's within my control and said, you know, sometimes it's been, how can I help? Then we've actually come up with an idea of a different way of doing things. So I've elaborated a little bit there, but it really is about, you know, just taking action on what's in your control rather than worrying about what is outside of your control. And there, I suppose, that's 3, isn't it? Yeah, I'll leave it there at 3. 1, 2, 3.
Super. Thank you, Julie. Really inspiring stuff. I particularly liked the, you know, asking a better question, the kind of almost removing the blocker, isn't it? We all get stuck in the mud in the long grass sometimes, and the kind of, this is, no, woe is me. This I can't do this. Sack it off. I'm having another biscuit. I have a lot of biscuits, don't I? As you can see. And I need to have more of these. He's be asking better questions, because when you ask that better question of how can we do it, or what can we do, or just let's change the mindset, change the question. I had one where I still haven't managed this, by the way, but I'm on literally on the road of, I wanted to cycle 100 miles in 5 hours. There you go, said it publicly, and that's another little gem, by the way. And you go, well, anyone with a mathematical bent will work out that's 20 miles an hour for 5 hours, which is pretty quick for an old bloke like me with a dodgy knee. But for ages it was like, I can't do that, I couldn't possibly do that. But then when you change the question, say, well, how could I do that? How can I make progress towards it? Suddenly the whole you can feel the tectonic plates of your mind start to shift, and that's the first step of getting the whole thing going. We had a hand there. It may have been an accidental hand, but I think that was the lovely Lauren. Did you have something you wanted to add, Lauren?
No, sorry, it was a clap.
Oh,
I thought it was really helpful.
Even better. Look at that support. We can shows my knowledge of these Zoom features. Makes me look like a moron, which is good. That's a good thing. Fabulous. Yeah. Isu came up with the helpful idea of going downhill. I think that might be cheating, but an excellent idea nonetheless. All right, cool. Colin, what have you got for us? Who are you, and what have you got for us?
Who am I? Colin McNulty, 10-year property investor and independent financial advisor. It's funny actually, because whilst this is normally a property event, my little gem is also about mindset. And I remember the very first course that I ever went on. I paid for this course down near London, and I went down for the day. And the whole of the first morning was about mindset. And I remember turning to the guy sat next to me and said, if this continues in the afternoon, I want my money back, because I came down and told him about property, not about mindset. But about 7 or 8 years later, I bumped into the guy who was running that course again, and I actually went up and had to shake his hand and say, actually, you are spot on. It is all about mindset. In my 20s, I used to be a programmer. I'm an chartered engineer by trade, as an IT programmer, and I thought that knowing the most about programming was the most important thing. So I spent all my 20s working about programming, and getting my knowledge up. Then in my 30s, I realized actually it's not what you know, it's who you know. So I spent all my 30s working on networking and my interpersonal skills. Then I got to my 40s and I realized that actually what you know is really important, and who you know is really important as well. But what goes on between your ears is the most important thing, because if you can't get your ass out of bed in the morning to get up and do a day's work, then it doesn't matter what you know, who you know. So we talked a bit about mentoring. I coach a handful of clients at a time, and this is something that I teach. Some of them, not all of them need it, but some of them do need a bit of help. And it's something that I discovered in my 40s about the relationship between productivity and motivation, because an awful lot of us think that we need to wait for motivation to do something, and in actual fact, I've discovered that it's the other way around. And there's a few interesting phrases which I'm sure we've all heard, which is, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. Or the other one is, how do you walk 1,000 miles? One step at a time. Or indeed, how do you cycle 100 miles, Tom? One revolution at a time. So the trick is here to reduce the task down to the smallest possible action, which is similar to what Julie just said. So let's give an example. Let's look at property examples. You've got your accounts to file at the end of the year. Either it's your personal accounts, got to be in by 31st of January, or it's your company accounts, got to be in by 9 months after your company year end. And we've all been in a situation. We put them off. I'll do it tomorrow because it's a big task. And this task, whatever it is, whether it's filing your accounts or something else, grows into this big thing in your head. And you sort of sit there waiting for days and weeks and months sometimes for the motivation to spring out of the ether. And what, of course, you're doing is you're procrastinating. You're putting it off because it's a big job and you don't want to do it, and it's difficult and it's hard. You're not quite sure what's going to happen here, and you might get this bit wrong. And when you submit it, what if you make a mistake? And you get all these thoughts in your head. So let's work through that example. So to file your accounts, you need to send a year's business information to your accountant. Well, to send a year's business information to your accountant, you need to enter it all into your accounting system, whether that's a spreadsheet, maybe it's he's given it to you, or Xero or some other accounting package. Well, to enter all of that information to Xero, you've got to submit like your receipts, your receipts for stuff you bought. Receipts have got to get all into there. And you might have hundreds of those. So to submit your receipts, you've got to process all your receipt slips. You've got to find them all, get them all together. They're either in a shoebox, or they're in, down the back of the settee, or in this pocket and that pocket, or in this wallet, or scattered over your desk, wherever. You've got to find them all. And to process all your receipt slips, really, you've got to do one. You've got to start with one. You've got to find that first time. Actually, I've got one to hand. But you've got to find that first receipt slip. You've got to get it out, and you've got to do one. So the minimum task you can do, the smallest possible action you can take that actually moves you along towards your goal, is to pick and process one receipt. And so that's the tip. Set that as your goal, your smallest possible action. I will do one receipt today. And then you give yourself permission to stop for the day and say, well, you've done a job well done. You set yourself a goal. I'm going to do one receipt today. I might have 300 receipts to do, but I won't worry about all that. I'll just do one today. And when you're done, you've achieved your goal. Well done. Give yourself a nice little pat on the back. And commit to doing another one receipt tomorrow. And there you go. Job done. You're happy. But then here's the surprising thing. And this is what I learned in my 40s, is that once you do one receipt, you kind of think, well, actually, that wasn't so bad. I'll tell you what, I'm going to do another. And then you do two. And sometimes you might do three. You may even get to four. And occasionally you'll surprise yourself, and you'll sit there for an hour or two, and you'll do all your receipts in one go. And you'll sit there and think, I wonder why I didn't do this months ago. That wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. But the interesting learning there is that productivity drives motivation. Of course, motivation drives productivity, and it becomes a virtuous cycle of positive feedback. But the key is you must make that first step. So how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. I'm not going to eat a whole elephant. I'm just going to eat this. I'm going to get one little bit here. I'm going to eat one. I can eat a mouthful. I can manage a mouthful. I can be productive to do the smallest possible job, whether it's a mouthful, whether it's taking one step, whether it's finding one receipt. And you do something so small that even you, to quote Jordan Peterson, he said, in your wretched procrastinating self, even you can achieve one receipt. So there you go. That's my little gem. Break tasks down to the absolute smallest possible thing you can do, and just commit to do that. And if that's all you do that day towards it, you've done it. And this brings in like the slight edge as well, which is to take small little steps every day. Is far more productive than doing a day's worth of activity and stuff. So it's just turning up and doing the work, but you get over that hump by doing it one step at a time.
Super stuff, Colin. Thank you very much. I liked a few people waving receipts around there as Colin showed one. Amazing how many of us have them on the desk. I don't know, like there he is. There's Yogesh with his. I've got to think. I don't know, but I've got to think. And by the way, I'm one of those guys. I haven't got any at the minute, but usually I have. And I've got to think like that might be something else to take today. Don't keep your damn receipts on the desk. That's got to be filling up mental space. It could be used for something better, hasn't it? But I could be wrong. Everyone can do what they want, of course. None of this constitutes financial advice. So first of all, Colin's gone last. Never an easy position to go into, and worth reflecting, as a couple of our speakers have already, that a lot of this is mindset stuff, right? I'm going to try and finish with something property specific, but that for no particular reason. The mindset stuff, I think, I completely agree, is, if anything, the most important. Speaking of mindset, Lauren says in the chat, really helpful, as it's easy to worry about the big things that you don't have control over in property. I think I'm pretty confident that was directed at Julie, but worth noting that could have been directed at anyone. So thanks for that, and John likewise found that useful. Okay. Yes, and you know, don't say we don't help out here, because as well as mindset stuff and all little gems, Colin also give practical advice on filing your taxes. So if you've not done that before, you're ahead. I'm going to finish up. May even finish roughly on time. I might try and give Yogesh a minute or two. But yeah, I'll let Yogesh talk us out. But in the meantime, the couple of little shares I wanted to do was to echo and maybe expand a little bit on what Colin said about The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, especially if, again, talking about being a wretched procrastinator, which I definitely am. And it's a bit like being, and I'm not an alcoholic or an addict, but I think I understand from the words that are used in those circles is you understand that you will be that for the rest of your life. It's just you've got to try and work out to manage it. And I think the same is definitely true for procrastination. That I will die a procrastinator. The only question is how I will manage that between now and then. And I've got to say, for the last 10 years, I've managed it much better than I ever thought possible. So if you're a procrastinator and never quite managed to beat that, I don't want to call it a disease, but whatever you want to call it, then I'm here to give you hope, and I'm sure others can too. That it's quite defeatable. You never completely, it never goes away, but you work out tools to get rid to do better with it. And The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson is one of the main tools that I've used to do that. So if you haven't already, read that book. I'll try and put a link in the description to buy it on Amazon or whatever. And great book, funny book, because you more or less know what's in it already by the title. But what you don't know is the detail, and the devil, as always, is in the detail. And just to give one example, he talks in the book at length about how if you look at two people and let's apply a property example where someone decides to rent their home, someone decides to maybe stretch a little bit and try and buy their first home, then over time, if you look at those people 1 year in, 2 years in, 10 years in, there's not that much difference. One person owns the home, one person doesn't, but at the end of the month, they've got the same amount of money. But then when you look 30 years on and one person's maybe paid off their mortgage and is able then to leave an asset or multiple assets to their family when they depart, or even to enjoy in their retirement if they want to do equity release, whatever it is, and you compare that to the person who's still renting, then short term it doesn't make much difference, but long term it makes a massive difference. And I find that to be true. Another example would be someone like Warren Buffett, who's a multi-billionaire and made something like 99% of his money after his 65th birthday. Why? Because of the miracle of compound interest. So a lot of this Slight Edge stuff links into compound interest, and that interest doesn't just need to be money. It can be time, it can be skills. So again, if you learn, I think I'm stealing this from Rob Moore, if you want to learn more or less anything, then the best time to do it is as soon as possible. Because if you learn to touch type when you're 12 years old, which by the way I did, oops, sorry, I might have microphone noise there, then that's going to have a massive return on investment, because if you're lucky enough to live to be, say, 70, then you get to use that skill day in, day out, and get an edge on everybody else or lots of other people, and you repeat that, whether that's language learning, investments, whatever it is, then it can be really powerful. So do that. And then lastly, I'll finish with one I think it's mostly aimed for newer investors, but probably relevant for everybody, and keeping it property specific. So last one for me is never let "I haven't got enough money" be an excuse in property for you, because it's the easiest and most obvious of all the excuses and reasons not for inaction, and it's not good enough. It's not enough to stop people. How do I know? Well, because there's plenty of people who haven't got any money or no money to start with, including me years ago, and it didn't stop them. And if you think about your heroes in property, that's Richard Branson or whoever it might be, like well, Bill Gates, not property, but you know what I mean, like these kind of people, they wouldn't let it stop them either, would they? So whatever the problem is, that's not really it. The problem is you haven't worked out other strategies and other techniques that can work without needing the money, or that you can use other people's money or whatever else that there is. But it's probably one of the most common excuses or reasons that I hear, and it's not enough. So make sure that's not you. It's perfectly valid, but it's not enough it shouldn't be enough to stop you. Right. Yogesh, you have about 30 seconds, and you're a man I know he probably has about 300 hours of value. So what 30-second little gem do you want to see us out with? You have to unmute yourself first, that's definite.
Okay, found the button. I'll do 3 quick things. You caught me off guard. I thought, well, we're going to run out of time. The things that have changed my life in terms of time and giving back my time are getting accounting software like Xero, or there's the other one, I can't remember. And because it pulls all your bank feeds and you don't have to worry about your tax returns because your accountant can do it from that usually. So that's number 1. Number 2 is getting a virtual assistant. Just pay someone to find your virtual assistant abroad in UK. test them for 5 or 10 hours a week, and you'll be amazed how much work you give them. It's completely changed my life. And number 3, yes, Sam was talking about this, about ideas. So definitely create time and space to come up with ideas. And my ideas come up in showers. It's really strange, but other people when they're exercising, whatever. But make that space to come up with ideas. But more importantly, write it down. So when I get an idea, like Sam gave me an idea about this financial advisor he's got, I'm probably going to contact him. It's gone in my phone. It's in my calendar, and it'll repeat every day until I actually call him or email him or contact him or he calls me back. And it doesn't stop repeating until it's done. Which does make my calendar quite full, but it means nothing gets slipped. And the other software that helps with that is something called Trello, which again you can add jobs to, and it stays on there until it gets done by you or your assistant or someone else. That's it. Is that okay?
Fabulous. Absolutely smashed it. Great way to see us all out. Appreciate everyone being here, especially appreciate all our speakers today. Hope that everyone listening's got something from it and can get out there and smash it even more so than you already are, and then can tell us all your stories, and most importantly, put yourself forward as speaker in the future, so that we get some great speakers like we've had today. If anyone's got any feedback or future topics, or even better, know any great speakers, then do let me know, and obviously we'll get those booked. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and catch you down the track.